Hey guys, it's Manager Kylie, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you how the classifications work for the Paralympic Games. So today I'm going to go through how the classifications for the Paralympic Games work. The Paralympic Games are played by athletes with disabilities. So the one key thing for the Paralympics is trying to make them fair, and classifications is a big way to do that. And today I'm going to go through how those classifications work and all the details behind whether you are able to participate in the Paralympic Games and if your disability is one that is eligible for your sport. But if you guys are interested in more sports administration videos just like this, definitely subscribe button, turn the bell so you get notified every time I upload, as I post a new video every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to dive in to see how these classifications work. And as I go through this video, if you're interested in any more information on this, I will have a direct link at the top of my description to the Paralympic website going through all this criteria on how it works. So if you ever need more information, feel free to check out that link. It will give you tons of detail on their whole process of figuring out how the criteria is determined and whether or not you are eligible to participate. So the classifications were put in place to try to make the sport fair. So this allows different competitions to be played against people in certain classifications, because if they didn't have this, pretty much almost every time, the person that is the least disabled or the most able-bodied person would win. So this allows people that have a more severe disability to have a chance at winning an Olympic medal. So the unique thing about the impairments is that each sport has a different set of impairments. There is a set of 10 impairments that go throughout the Paralympic Games, but not each sport classifies each one as an impairment for their sport. And some sports take all the different impairments, and some sports you only have to have certain impairments to be able to participate. So there's a lot that goes into whether or not you are able to participate in the Paralympic Games. There are 3 major steps to determining your classification. The first one being, do you have an eligible impairment, and do you have an eligible impairment for the sport you're participating in? The second one is, does your impairment meet the minimum impairment criteria? And then finally, which sports class should you be in? So how does your impairment affect the sport? Does it affect it a lot? Does it only affect it a little bit? How severe is your impairment specifically for the sport you're participating in, and which class should you be placed in? And one unique thing as we go through this is your impairment might be severe enough that you're able to participate in, say, track, but you aren't able to participate in basketball. Depending on what type of impairment you have and how severe it is, you may be able to participate in one sport but not another, and that's a very important thing to understand. There's a lot of tests that go into figuring out what level your impairment is to make sure that all the games are fair. So the first step is, what type of impairment do you have, and is it an eligible impairment? Now there are 10 eligible impairments. These are impaired muscle power, impaired passive range of motion, limb deficiencies, leg length differences, short stature, hypertonia, ataxia, athetosis, and then vision impairment and intellectual impairment. Now, each one of these has specific criteria with it on whether or not you're eligible to participate. Specifically, intellectual impairment is something that has to have happened before you were 18 years of age. So this is generally something you were born with. So with all those different impairments, they're generally split up into 3 different categories. There's physical impairments, vision impairments, and intellectual impairments. So the first 8 all kind of fit into that physical impairment category, and then you have your vision impairment and then your intellectual impairment. And depending on the sport, you may have the opportunity, no matter what your impairment is, to participate. This is very common in sports like athletics, which is track and field, or swimming. No matter what your impairment is, you are able to participate as long as it's severe enough. However, there are some sports that only allow you to participate with certain impairments, like goalball only allows you to participate if you have a vision impairment. And then there are some that allow for a few different types of impairments, and commonly this is equestrian as one of the examples. So there's some that allow all impairments, some that only allow a few, and some that only allow one. So it does become sport specific. A lot of this is, I'm going to keep emphasizing that it's sport specific. So the International Sports Federation conducts and tests on you to figure out if you are eligible and have an eligible impairment to be able to participate in your respective sport at the Paralympic level. So if you have an eligible impairment, it's now, do you meet the minimum impairment criteria? So you have to figure out if you meet the minimum criteria for each one of your impairments. So for this, each sport has slightly different minimum impairment criteria. So you may meet it in one sport but not meet it in another. So some of these minimum criteria is maximum height for people to be considered short stature, or the level of amputation that you may have for some sort of limb deficiency. If you meet the minimum impairment criteria, then move on to the third level, which is determining your sports class. So some events like track and field have lots of different sports classes so that many people can participate, and then some sports like powerlifting only have one sports class. And the key to sports classes are they are athletes of similar impairment as it affects the sport. So you may have people with vision impairments and limb deficiencies in the same race, but it depends on how it affects the sport. So you may have different impairments all together in a race, but they have an equal effect on that sport, so they are able to all participate in the same race. If it doesn't have an equal effect, they will be put into separate classes and compete in different races to make it fair. So determining your sports class is done through a bunch of physical tests and to test how the impairment affects you in that sport. You do go through tests with physicians to make sure that you are able to play that sport and that you're able to meet the minimum criteria. And everything is done by a classification panel that is trained professionals, both in medicine, physicians, and then trained professionals in the sports. So they know the rules of the sports, but they also know the physical aspects of whatever condition you have. So it's very important that you go through these tests to get classed. And many times you will get reclassed, especially for some of the impairments as they change over time. You may lose more vision over time. You can get reclassed as it has more effect on how you play the sport. So I hope you guys found this video informative. If you have any questions about the Paralympic classifications, please let me know in the comments down below. Again, I will be linking down below a link to the Paralympic website explaining all the details on this if you're looking for more information and more details about each one of the impairments. I hope you guys are looking forward to the Paralympics coming up in the next few weeks. The Winter Paralympics are happening in Beijing this year. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next Wednesday.